Arrogance of the Galactic Union. The Great Hall of Arms on Valor Prime glittered with alien brilliance. Holographic banners rippled overhead, projecting the emblems of the Galactic Union's most advanced civilizations. Hundreds of delegates sat in ascending tiers around the central floor, their eyes, or the equivalent, fixed on the procession of weapons demonstrations. This was the annual Concord of Armaments, where species flaunted their newest innovations of destruction. It was less a peace conference and more a stage for intimidation, each faction eager to remind the others of their power. The Zoric, massive reptilians with crystalline hides, demonstrated a disintegration lance that turned a boulder into glittering dust. The Nral Consortium showed off a molecular destabilizer, collapsing a reinforced wall into a puddle of bubbling goo. When the crystalline Scythery activated their gravity cannon, the floor plates warped, bending steel beams like cloth. The audience murmured approval, clicking mandibles, swishing tails, or flashing bioluminescent displays of awe. And then it was humanity's turn. A small delegation stepped forward. 5 humans in simple black uniforms, their planetary crests stitched at the chest. No elaborate regalia, no genetically modified bodyguards, no towering exosuits. Just plain humans. At their head was Commander Elias Mercer, tall, broad-shouldered, with streaks of gray in his beard. He carried himself with the same unshaken calmness that had unsettled many alien observers since humans had joined the Union. Representatives of Earth, the Grand Arbiter intoned, her voice resonant across the chamber, demonstrate your contributions to the arsenal of civilization. Mercer nodded once. His aide wheeled out a cart. On it lay 3 objects. First, a ballistic rifle, the kind that spat solid slugs propelled by chemical explosions. The human aimed it at a steel target and fired. The loud crack reverberated through the hall, startling more than a few alien dignitaries unused to such concussive sound. The bullet punched a neat hole through the steel. There was a moment of silence. Then derisive laughter spread through the crowd. Primitive, explosive powder toys. They still fling metal instead of energy. Unbothered, Mercer gestured to the next item, a high-explosive grenade. He pulled the pin, tossed it into a reinforced containment cube, and stepped back. The detonation rattled the chamber, flames licking the transparent barrier. The laughter grew louder. Crude shrapnel bombs, barely worthy of pirates. They're showing us history lessons. Mercer's face remained unreadable. He motioned to the final device on the cart, a long, rugged weapon with a thick fuel tank attached by hose. The Flamethrower. The human holding it pulled the ignition trigger. A tongue of liquid fire roared forth, a rolling wave of flame that splashed against the containment field. The blaze hissed and crackled, smoke curling toward the ceiling vents. The chamber erupted, not with fear, but with laughter bordering on hysteria. Fire? Actual fire, chittered a Valorian general, slapping his armored thigh. They bring torches to a war of suns, shrieked a Scythery dignitary, her crystalline body chiming with mirth. This is their great innovation, boomed the Zoric warlord. Children's tricks. Delegates jeered, claws clapping, tendrils writhing, biolights flickering in mockery. The Flamethrower, to them, was the punchline of a joke told across the stars. Only Mercer did not smile. He let the laughter play out, then stepped forward, voice calm but carrying iron weight. You see an old weapon, he said, a barbaric relic. But fire is older than all of us. Fire reshaped our world before our first cities. Fire killed beasts too strong for stone spears. Fire burned our enemies when nothing else could. It does not ask permission. It does not negotiate. Fire consumes. His eyes swept the tiers of delegates, meeting as many gazes as he could. You laugh now, but remember this. Shields fail, armor cracks, energy runs out. Fire remains. Always. The chamber quieted for a heartbeat, not in agreement, but in the way a room quiets before laughter bursts anew. The Grand Arbiter tapped her scepter, restoring order. Demonstration acknowledged. Humanity may retire. As the delegation withdrew, The aliens' chuckles followed them out like an echo. To the Union, the day would be remembered as the moment humanity exposed its quaint primitiveness. But for the humans, it was a seed planted, because in Mercer's pocket lay field reports. Reports of how alien physiology reacted to flame, of how hive-structured species dreaded it, of how shields calibrated for energy beams faltered before liquid fire that clung and spread. Let them laugh, Mercer thought as he stepped into the transport shuttle. They had mocked Earth's first sailors, first pilots, first soldiers too. When the time came, the galaxy would learn, just as humanity once had, that fire was not a toy. It was terror made manifest. And it always won in the end. The spark ignites. War came sooner than anyone expected. It began on the colony world of Daris 4, a temperate planet where forests stretched for hundreds of kilometers and human settlements thrived in clearings carved from the wilderness. The Valorians, insectoid warriors of the Union, had grown tired of humanity's growing influence in trade and territory disputes. Backed by arrogant confidence in their technology, they launched a disciplinary strike against the human colonies. The first attacks were devastating. Sleek Valorian ships descended through the atmosphere, unleashing plasma bombardments that scorched fields and reduced outposts to ash. Their ground forces marched in behind energy shields that shimmered like translucent domes, impervious to bullets and shrapnel. Human defenders fought bravely with rifles, mortars, and heavy machine guns, but their weapons sparked harmlessly against the shields. The alien commanders broadcast their mockery across open frequencies. Pathetic Earthborn, one hissed in their mandible-clicking tongue, translated into harsh common speech. Your metal slugs cannot pierce our shields. Your bombs tickle our armor. Retreat into the dirt you crawled from. Humanity was outmatched in open combat, but humans had never survived wars by relying on fair fights. When the colony of Havenbrook fell under siege, Commander Elias Mercer arrived with the 42nd Terran Infantry, bringing with him crates that made the Valorians laugh when they intercepted the supply manifests. Flamethrowers, incendiary tanks, fuel drums. The first deployment happened during a desperate nighttime defense. Valorian soldiers pressed into the colony streets, their shields glowing with absorbed kinetic fire. Human rifles rattled, grenades exploded, but the insectoid warriors kept advancing, their chitinous armor gleaming. Then a new sound pierced the night, a guttural hiss followed by a roar. Private Ana Rodriguez stepped from an alley, her flamethrower belching a stream of burning liquid that splashed against a Valorian shield. For a moment, it seemed laughable again, until the fire crawled over the dome, wrapping it in flame. The shield crackled, overloaded by the continuous energy drain. Then it collapsed. The Valorian beneath screeched as the fire clung to its carapace. Chitin bubbled and cracked, oily secretions igniting in bursts of blue flame. The warrior thrashed, shrieking until it collapsed into a smoldering husk. The others froze. Their instincts screamed louder than their training. Fire meant death. Fire meant the end of the hive. Rodriguez swept the nozzle across another pair of soldiers, and they broke ranks in panic, scrambling to escape the inferno licking at their armor. Within minutes, the tide of battle shifted. Flamethrower teams emerged from cover, spewing gouts of flame into shield lines, into bunkers, into the dense clusters of insectoid warriors. Rifles and grenades had been nuisances. Fire was terror. From the command center, Mercer watched through helmet feeds, his jaw tight, but eyes cold. He had gambled everything on this. Push them back, he ordered. Keep the pressure. Fire doesn't just kill them, it owns them. Across Havenbrook, alleys became traps of flame. Corridors turned into crematoriums, and bunkers into ovens. The Valorians retreated, hissing in disbelief. They had faced plasma, railguns, and orbital strikes in countless wars. But never had they confronted something so primal, so merciless, so unstoppable. By dawn, Havenbrook still stood. The Union broadcast channels exploded with confusion. Reports came in from other colonies, flamethrower units breaching shield lines, incinerating stockpiles, collapsing entire squads with minimal ammunition expenditure. Footage of Valorian warriors engulfed in flame went viral, replayed endlessly. At first, alien commentators scoffed. Temporary luck, they insisted. Psychological trickery. But the battles kept repeating, and the results were always the same. Fire spread where energy could not. Fire consumed resources, oxygen morale. Fire laughed at shields calibrated for plasma, and it terrified them. One intercepted transmission captured a Valorian commander's panicked order. Do not let them ignite fuel stores. Do not let them near the nesting chambers. If the fire spreads, we are finished. The realization struck like lightning. The weapon they had mocked most was the one they were least prepared to face. That night, as the surviving humans of Havenbrook gathered in their battered square, Mercer addressed them by torchlight. The colonists were bruised, soot-streaked, exhausted, but alive. They thought us weak, Mercer said, voice carrying over the crackle of fire pits. They thought our weapons were relics. But we are the children of fire. We tamed it when we were little more than beasts. We carried it into every war since. And now we will carry it into theirs. The crowd answered with weary but determined cheers. Above them, alien eyes watched from orbit. For the first time in centuries of galactic warfare, the great powers felt an old, primal dread coil in their guts. They had mocked the humans for clinging to fire. Now they whispered in fear of it. The galaxy burns with fear. The flames of Havenbrook spread far beyond the colony's forests. Not physically, but in memory, in rumor, in terror. Within weeks, the Galactic Union's information channels were filled with grainy combat footage. Insectoid warriors collapsing in shrieks as fire clung to their carapaces. Bunkers turned into roaring ovens. Shield lines dissolving under liquid flame. To the Union's military analysts, it was an aberration, an unexpected trick, clever but limited. Yet to the rank-and-file soldiers across the stars, it was something far worse, a nightmare resurrected. For the Cytheri, crystalline beings who lived in harmony with volcanic worlds, fire meant the ancient eruptions that shattered their ancestors. For the Avrel, avian predators, it meant the wildfires that once swept their hunting grounds. Even the mighty Zorik, reptilian warlords clad in crystal scales, remembered their evolutionary terror of brush fires that had once consumed entire broods. Fire was etched into their instincts. It was not merely destruction, it was end of control, and the humans wielded it without hesitation. On the swamp world of Narkin, a Union garrison found themselves entrenched against human marines. The Valorian commander deployed heavy plasma turrets, confident the humans would break against their firepower. Instead, the night filled with a new sound, the hiss of pumps, the cough of ignition, and the rushing roar of fire. The humans advanced with flamethrowers, flames cutting across the swamp reeds. The fire leapt from plant to plant, choking the air with smoke. Shields sputtered, the heat overwhelming delicate energy regulators. The Valorians broke ranks before the humans even reached them. Some tried to retreat deeper into the swamp, only to find the humans had already set fire to the waterlogged vegetation behind them. The swamp became a trap of smoke and suffocation. When the surviving commander finally surrendered, his mandibles quivered as he rasped to the translator. Keep the fire away. We yield. Elsewhere, on the mining colony of Drassel 9, human insurgents ignited the very atmosphere of a processing plant. The explosion of flame roared through the facility, clinging to the oily armor of the insectoid defenders. Reports said the screams of burning soldiers carried for kilometers. The entire Union garrison evacuated before the battle had truly begun. Word of these battles spread faster than the flames themselves. Union soldiers began refusing deployments to human fronts. Training exercises were disrupted by recruits panicking at the faintest flicker of orange. Commanders tried to discipline them, but instinct could not be beaten out. Fear, Mercer realized, was the strongest weapon humanity had ever deployed. In orbit above Earth, the United Terran military convened. Representatives of the colonies, fleet commanders, and ground generals gathered in a war council. "They are cracking," said General Quan, pointing at intercepted alien transmissions. Entire squads abandoning fortified positions at the sight of flame. Admiral Nyoko leaned forward. "But we must be careful. If they adapt, develop flame-resistant armor or countermeasures, we lose our advantage." Mercer shook his head. "It doesn't matter if they adapt physically. This isn't just about burning their bodies. It's about burning their minds. They're hardwired to fear fire. They can build new armor, but they can't erase evolution." He tapped a screen, showing a looping clip of Alorians scattering from a single flamethrower squad. "We don't need to burn every city. We just need to make them believe we will." Thus, a new doctrine was born: psychological fire warfare. Before battles, humans broadcast streams of roaring flame across Union frequencies. They projected massive holograms of firestorms above advancing fleets. They dropped canisters of napalm into empty valleys, not to kill, but to create towering pillars of flame visible for kilometers. Entire alien regiments broke without contact. Civilians rioted in fear that humans would set their hive cities ablaze. The mere rumor of flamethrower units deployed nearby sent Union soldiers into retreat. One incident cemented the terror. On the orbital station Catherine Spire, Union Marines attempted to board a captured human freighter. The corridors were tight, metallic, designed for industrial transport. Perfect terrain. When the hatches opened, human defenders unleashed flamethrowers in the narrow passageways. The fire roared, consuming oxygen, filling the corridors with choking smoke. The aliens tried to push forward, but panic overtook them. Some clawed at each other to escape. Others ripped off their helmets in terror, suffocating in the haze. The boarding action collapsed in minutes. Footage leaked, showing alien soldiers trampling their own commanders in blind fear of fire. The Union tried to censor the reports, but it was too late. Across the galaxy, the phrase spread: "Beware the fireborn." In a dim briefing room on Earth, Mercer watched the report scroll across the screen. His officers sat in silence. "They thought we were primitive," Mercer said quietly. "They mocked our weapons, our history, our struggle. But they forgot the oldest truth of war." Colonel Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "And what's that, sir?" Mercer's eyes burned with the same intensity as the flames now haunting the galaxy. "That the simplest weapons, fear, fire, will, are the hardest to defeat." Outside, Earth's night sky glittered with stars. Somewhere among them, countless alien worlds whispered in dread, waiting for the humans to arrive. And always, in their nightmares, the shadows carried torches. Fire forged respect. The Galactic Union could not ignore it any longer. World after world whispered the same tale. Human fire had broken armies, emptied garrisons, and shattered morale. Alien civilians petitioned their leaders to sue for peace. But the Union Council, bound by pride, declared one final offensive. They would gather a coalition fleet, crush humanity in one decisive strike, and burn away the stain of their humiliation. The Union Armada arrived in the Escheron system, a sprawling star network where several human colonies thrived. Hundreds of warships darkened the void, their presence blotting out constellations. On the colony of Gravenlock, the largest of the system's worlds, human defenders watched the skies burn with streaks of descending transports. Commander Elias Mercer stood on the ridge above the valley where the first wave would land. His officers gathered beside him, tension crackling in the air. "They outnumber us 5-1, Colonel Rodriguez muttered. "If they dig in, we'll never root them out." Mercer's gaze was cold, steady. "They won't dig in. They'll try to overwhelm us quickly, like they always do. And when they push too far," he looked down into the valley where barrels of fuel, incendiary mines, and hidden flamethrower emplacements waited. "We light the world beneath them." The first Union troops landed in tight formation, shields glowing, weapons humming. Behind them, armored crawlers rumbled, plasma turrets scanning for targets. The alien commander broadcast a confident message across open channels. Earthborn, your fire tricks end here. We will sweep you from the stars. Mercer gave no reply. He simply raised his hand. The trap was sprung. Hidden charges detonated, igniting fuel lines buried beneath the valley floor. Rivers of flame erupted, sweeping across the alien landing zone. Crawlers toppled as their treads melted. Shield lines buckled, their generators screeching under the relentless heat. Soldiers scattered, their discipline evaporating as the ground itself turned into a furnace. From the ridgeline, human flamethrower squads advanced, their weapons vomiting arcs of liquid fire down into the chaos. The valley became an inferno. Alien screams filled the calms. Shields collapsing, it's spreading. The air is static, cut them off as flames devour their positions. The Union command attempted to stabilize with reinforcements, dropping more troops into the maelstrom. But the humans anticipated it. They lit controlled burns along the surrounding forests, creating walls of smoke and flame that disoriented the incoming waves. By nightfall, the valley was no longer a battlefield. It was a pyre. The second day brought desperation. Union warships in orbit unleashed heavy bombardments, trying to sear the humans from their fortifications. But the humans had burrowed deep, shielded by rock and reinforced bunkers. When Union ground forces finally pushed through the smoldering ruins of the valley, they found the humans waiting in tight corridors and tunnels. Flamethrowers roared in those confined spaces, turning every advance into suicide. Union morale collapsed. Squads refused orders. Entire units mutinied rather than march into another fire trap. By the third day, the once mighty Union offensive was a rout. Ships fled orbit, abandoning soldiers planetside. Commanders sent panic transmissions, begging for extraction before the humans unleashed the fire again. The war ended not with a treaty, but with a silence. The Union recalled its fleets, licking wounds too deep to hide. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council chamber sat in uneasy quiet. Then, into that silence, the human delegation walked. Mercer led them, the same calm step he had carried at the weapons summit months ago. He carried no elaborate speech, no long declaration. He simply approached the central table, set a flamethrower upon it, and stepped back. The aliens stared at the crude device, its fuel tank dented, its metal nozzle blackened by use. None dared laugh this time. Mercer's voice was steady, almost soft. You mocked us for this weapon. You thought it beneath you. But it is older than any council, older than any fleet. Fire is not crude. Fire is not primitive. Fire is truth. And the truth is this: we will not be dominated. Silence stretched through the chamber. Some delegates shifted uneasily. Others avoided looking at the weapon at all. Finally, the Grand Arbiter bowed her crystalline head. Earth, she said, voice heavy, the Union recognizes your strength. This conflict will end, and your fire will be respected. Mercer gave a single nod. He had not come for applause, only acknowledgement. Outside the chamber, alien civilians gathered in hushed groups, speaking the words that had already spread from world to world. Words carried in fear, but also in grudging admiration. The Fireborn. Back aboard the Terran flagship, Rodriguez approached Mercer as they prepared to return home. Do you think he'll try again? She asked. Mercer stared out the viewport at the stars. Maybe, but if they do, they'll remember the fire. That's all we need. He allowed himself the faintest smile. In a galaxy of suns and cannons, it was fire, the first weapon we ever tamed, that made the universe tremble. The stars burned silently in the void, and for the first time in galactic history, they seemed to flicker in the reflection of humanity's flame.